This meeting is being recorded.
I mean,
Is
we're
that-
actually, we were actually recording it in the minutes, so I
Okay.
don't know how everybody feels. Do we need to do that?
Is that Mike that's handling the show tonight, or?
This is Steve. I apologize. Would you care to just give a recap of any motions that were made, if the recording would just catch it?
There were, there were no motions as of yet.
There was.
Just the approval of the minutes.
Just, yes, sorry, I apologize for, yep.
Thank you.
Approval of the minutes for May 12th.
Yeah, and I just like, my comment was not a motion regarding Cheryl's retirement, but I would like it on the public record as well, on the recording, that Cheryl will be leaving town service effective June 1st after 25 years of dedication to our community. And I again will reiterate that I'd like to express on behalf of myself personally, but also the town of Ashford, for Cheryl's dedication and diligence to the town over the many years of service. Again, thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Bill.
Memorial Day services ceremonies will be held on Monday at 11 o'clock in the morning at the Veterans Memorial. There will be songs sang by the Ashford Choraleers, and music also backed up and played by the Babcock Band. This is going to be one of their first appearances after this long COVID nightmare that we're hopefully looking at the end of the tunnel and light on. And I would encourage you all to attend and tell your friends and relatives, and hopefully we'll have a nice day. I know there was some disappointment that was expressed to me by some individuals because we're not going to have a parade that day. We are trying to put together a parade for celebrations for the 4th of July holiday. That parade is presently set for Sunday, the 3rd. Stay tuned with more information coming up on that. Probably that week preceding that, I'm encouraging all of our departments, the highway department, the fire department, and several other offices and that to be open to the public for inspection. We're hoping that our residents come out and see those departments that serve them very well. And we're hoping for a celebration day on that day. I believe I may have mentioned this at your last meeting. I'll just reiterate it. The new bus was received from our 2000, the budget we're in right now. And it is presently on the road and running. And I understand it's doing a fine job. We have proceeded to, as you know, this coming budget is proposed to be paid for with ARPA funds for the bus. And we're proceeding to get prices and that on the bus, and to start in on planning for our next year's budget. You may have noticed around town on several key roads, but eventually on all of the roads, we've ordered speed limit signs. And what we were doing was running into the issues with a number of complaints from residents about speeders on their local roads. And inquiries of the state police called our attention to the fact that even if they were to observe that, they'd have a problem enforcing it, because there are many of our roads that don't have any speed limit designation. So we're in the process of catching up on that. Just to further comments that I've made in the past, but are ongoing. We've got ongoing discussions with the school administration and a couple of our sister towns about sharing different services and perhaps equipment and that sort of thing. Those will be ongoing, and as they certainly mature and come to evidence, I'll be reporting back to your board. I think we can gain not only a financial advantage by doing that, but also functional advantages for various departments. So that's ongoing, and I think we're starting to get somewhere. I don't want to steal any of Linda Gagney's thunder, but her and I met a couple of times this week. And Linda, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we're at 98.75% of our anticipated collection rate, which, and the numbers are increasing, but at last count, I was informed we're at about $199,000 over what our anticipated revenue was projected for this year. And again, I congratulate Linda for her fine work and diligent, not only this year, but of course over many years. But so that's very good news. And having said that, if anybody has any questions about any of the items I mentioned or anything else, I'll be happy to address it.
Nope. The next item was you also, Bill, for a summary of current year expenditures. Did you get a chance to do that?
Well, I've had some discussions with Cheryl. We had one, as a matter of fact, yesterday. And I believe that you've got some recent readouts this week. I believe, Cheryl, you may be able to correct me if I'm wrong on that, about actual expenditures. But I just want to give you a 10,000-foot picture of it. Last year, this time, we had about $80,000 of funding that had not been dedicated yet. This year, we're at about $70,000. We do have several of our line items that are showing overages, but and probably the one that sticks out the most to us is our highway department. I know, for instance, at your last meeting, we discussed sand and gravel and a couple of things. And I believe it was mentioned that we incurred with the storms that happened last July and August, approximately $60,000 in unanticipated costs for reconstruction and refurbishment of damages from the heavy flooding. I guess the most prominent damage was the loss of a bridge on Cushman Road. So that's the lion's share of it. But I'm informed that even with all of that, and I understand that the budgets for the transfer station and the highway department at the recommendation of the auditors last year has been consolidated into one, but we've got just short of $20,000 of undedicated monies in that particular account right now. So overall, we're in fairly good shape with anticipated expenditures and excellent shape in a little more than we were anticipating with anticipated revenues. So again, I congratulate everybody on their work and where we are on that. Again, if you have any questions regarding that, I'll be glad to address them or ask for Cheryl's help on it.
I have a question.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Judy.
Go ahead, Christina.
I think last meeting you might have mentioned that, or maybe I dreamed this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I think that it was mentioned that perhaps we might be getting some more money from the state than expected. Is that a fact, or is that still uncertain?
There was a time there that we were advised by the state that with their motor vehicle taxes, we may be getting some equalizations. And Linda can address that. She attended a seminar, I think just this past week, but that is not going to happen to us.
Okay.
Bill, what was the 2020 equalization net grand list item? Did you get any clarification from Kara that we can speak to?
I'm still studying that. I think she sent you the same thing. And to be honest with you, I haven't been able to read through it thoroughly right now. I'm not sure what the impact. I know there was approximately $2 million mentioned there, but I'm not sure. what I was assured by her was there'll be no supplemental tax bills that'll be going out, that it's a typical equalization process, but there'll be no impact directly on our taxpayers.
Okay. The reason I didn't send it to you guys yet is I'm waiting for clarification so I can send the package and an understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's rather complicated.
Okay, any questions for Bill? Everybody good? Okay, Miss Linda, you're on. You here? Ah, there she is. Hi, Linda. It's your turn. Discussion
muted.
of the discussion about the account suspension item.
Linda, you're muted if you're trying.
Oh, she must be having troubles.
Bill, what did he say? She walked away. No, it looked like she disconnected for some reason, then just had reconnected. You heard the ding, and I think that was her.
You may be running up here.
Could be some technical issue, probably.
Are you two allowed to be in the same room together? Is that permitted?
I hope so.
Let's give her a minute so she's not running.
Here she is.
I lost my audio.
Well, you're welcome to mine.
Thank you. I could
Christina
sit
asked
here.
if we were allowed in the same room together. I said, I think so.
Yes, all right. Now, am I on? I mean, is it my,
They can even see you. You're on.
okay, sorry about that, everyone.
No, then you're fine, Linda.
I lost audio all of a sudden. I tried rebooting and I had all my screens going and it went black, came back and I couldn't get it going. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm here this evening to request that the Board of Finance transfer to suspense the accounts that I put in the packet, and by statute, I need to come to the Board of Finance and give you accounts that I deem uncollectible, and 20 of those accounts are last year's and this year's levy on what was formerly known as Cadle Rock and is now known as the town of Ashford. And so we're not going to collect that at all. So I would like to move it over with the rest of those accounts. And suspense accounts are deemed uncollectible, but they're not abated. So in rare instances, we have collected on accounts that are moved to suspense. And so you'll see in your packet that there's a number of accounts from prior years of people that are deceased. And there was no known estate, so I would like to get those moved off of my books. And there was one that was an overlap between bankruptcy and then they died. So I categorized that in with the deceased. And there's truly 3 accounts that are discharged by through bankruptcy, and those are included in. So I summarized the accounts for you. I broke it down and which categories. So there's 20 parcels of real estate totaling $32,858.94. There's
Can you
one.
say that? Sorry, Linda, could you repeat that, please?
Yes, and you do have that, it's printed out on your sheet.
Yep.
20 parcels of real estate that total $32,858.94. There's one personal property account where the owner is deceased that totals $30.10. These are tax amounts only. And then there's also 54 motor vehicle accounts totaling $6,554.08, and 3 motor vehicle accounts that are discharged by bankruptcy. So the total of those accounts is $39,563.06.
Okay,
And so I listed also the location of these properties, the account holders, and the taxes, and that's, you have all the detail to that.
thank you so much for doing that, Linda.
You're welcome. Again, I'm sorry. I was watching the camera lit up and not hearing anything.
Oh, forget about it. We don't care. You're here. Okay, so we're moving. Okay, we need a motion to move to the suspense account. Do I have to get into the particulars, like break it down like you just did? Or can I just go for the total amount, Cheryl?
Well, I prepared your motion, which breaks it down. And you may want to put that,
Oh, yep, I see it. So I could just read it the way it is?
yes, yeah.
Okay,
And I can't move them until you motion it and it's in your minutes, you know, so you can, I think, just add it to your minutes so that there's a legal auditable trail.
thank you. Okay, so I'll move. Judith Austin moves, and who's gonna second?
I'll second it, Christina Davis.
A motion to transfer the suspense account, the following accounts which are deemed to be uncollectible per CGS section 12-165 as of May 26, 2022. 20 parcels contaminated under the EPA and DEP liens totaling acquired by the town of Ashford through tax sales. 1 personal property account where the owner of the record is deceased. 54 motor vehicle accounts, the owner of record are deceased and no known other estate exists. And 3 motor vehicle accounts discharged by bankruptcy, equaling $39,563.06. All those in favor?
Judy, is there gonna be discussion? I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, on the Cattle Rock properties, or Cattle Rock, however you say that, the $32,000, is that the sum total of all the taxes that we haven't collected on that property, or is that just for the last year?
The last 2 years, the last 2 grand lists. The rest of them have been moved already in prior meetings, and last year, because of COVID, we were still closed down, and I did not come to the Board of Finance. Plus, we were, there was things going on with that, with the tax sale, so I waited, and that's the last 2 years, so there are 15 years prior, and taxes after 15 years are uncollectible through operation of law.
Gotcha.
There's more like
Um,
$1 million.
yeah, I thought it was a lot. Yeah. Okay. And then this is sort of a weird math question, but I'm curious how this number, this 39,000, like, does that impact your tax collection rate? Like,
Well, what happens is then once once you make that an approved motion, they're moved out of my open assets and they're put into another book. So it will decrease what's an open asset. And thereby the auditors come in, they look at that, and I'm very cautious and reluctant to put things and deem it as uncollectible. Because I mean, this past year, I had it out on, I was collecting taxes from 10 years ago through whatever reason. People leave and think they're never coming back, but they do. And then they try to register a car. So a lot of it, mostly it's motor vehicles that are sitting there in open accounts, except for K-Rock.
right. So could this actually send, because what your tax collection rate is 98.7 something. So could this actually would it tip it up to like 99, or is it not big enough?
No, it's not, well, it's not big enough. And it's real estate. Real estate is at 98.79 or 98 point, I don't know, it changes every day. And so it's spread out into different categories. So then I have to pull my trial balance and see exactly where it is. But we're well in the black over what we projected.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, we'll move on. All those in favor?
Aye, Angie.
Aye. Aye, Christina.
Paul, aye.
Judy, aye.
Garth, aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Linda, for all your work and organization on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's see. Old business annual report. Jesse's not here, so we'll move that until the
I
next
think he
meeting.
joined. I think
Oh,
he
yes,
just
he
joined.
is.
Is he? Oh, hi, Jess.
It's either him or Gina.
I
Yes,
don't
this
know
is
if-
Jesse. I just joined.
Hi, Jess.
Yeah, I wasn't really prepared for remarks on the annual report. Just that still waiting on a bunch of reports to come in. A lot of them coming from town departments, so I'll be getting with Mr. Folletti to get those verified.
Can you help him out, Bill?
Always. I did help him a little this month, Jesse, but we'll get on the rest.
All right, I did get those that came through, but there's still a lot more.
Yeah. Now let's get together and I'll glad to assist.
Thank you, Jesse. Okay. Now we're back to the discussion of possible action on the open space that we spoke about during the communications. Where did I put my note? Okay, do we have a motion? Hang on, let me see if I can get this right. Do we have a motion to move the Yale payment to the Conservation Commission? To put, oh, geez. To move $8,000 into the land acquisition from the general fund. I kind of said that screwed up. Somebody want to say that better? Paul? No.
Well, I won't make the motion, but I want to clarify with.
That's why I said say it better.
Yeah, like I said, I won't make the motion, but I want to clarify with Cheryl that this is, do we already have the payment? I guess maybe Linda too, but she can't hear us. So do we already have that payment, or is it we are expecting that payment? What exactly is the Conservation Commission requesting? We're
Cheryl,
not
you
hearing
gotta
you
mute.
either, Cheryl. No,
You're still muted.
How about that?
that's better.
You're gonna have to hear the dogs barking.
That's okay.
Sorry. So first of all, yes, we have the money. This is, I think, the third year that the Yale School of Forestry has made the payment as a payment in lieu of taxes rather than to the tax collector. So we do have that money this year, and we anticipate receiving it again next year. The Conservation Commission's request is that the funds be moved from the general fund into the land acquisition fund and what they use the land acquisition for is to purchase open spaces, like we did the Crook property and some of the Knowlton land. They, combined with some state funds, and I think Knowlton's Joshua's actually donated also. And so that's what they anticipate doing with the funds eventually, when they build it up again.
So Cheryl, what happens if you don't move the fund?
If you don't move money into the land acquisition fund, then they
Yes.
have no funds to buy any open space.
No, but I mean, as far as Yale's concerned,
Oh,
it just sits
Yale,
in the general fund?
yes. Yeah, they don't even know this is happening unless they're watching the meetings afterward. They just provide the funds in lieu of taxes for services that they may receive.
Bill?
I believe that in the past that we've done this, just in the interest of land preservation and that, and I don't believe we've ever run into any objections to it.
Well, like I said in the beginning, I don't ever remember voting on this, and perhaps because it was a different account and we never saw that. So maybe it was paid for in a different method that didn't require the Board of Finance?
We've never moved these funds before.
Yeah.
It was just a revenue.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Christina.
So does the Conservation Commission get to spend the money in the open space land acquisition fund as they want, or do they have to come to the Board of Finance to approve expenditures from that fund?
No, it would be a large project and probably several years down the road for projects like, you may want to make familiarize yourself with the Crook Orchard purchase and the.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
So something similar to that is it's a big project. It goes through a lot of machinations before it gets to the purchase part. They don't have access to the funds.
So how do they get authorized to spend that money?
Many machinations. it goes through many, that first there has to be an interest in purchasing the property. There has to be an interest in the property owner selling the property. And then there's a whole process where the state matches some funds, and it's not something that happens overnight. And $8,000 on its own is enough to do anything.
What I'm trying to get at is, like, I guess you could, like, will spending of this $8,000, if it goes to the open space land acquisition fund, ever come back to either the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen or the town to be approved to be spent? Or will the Conservation Commission be able to spend this money? You know, as you said, all those pieces have to happen, but I'm trying to get if the taxpayers and their representatives will ever get to approve how this money gets spent again, or if once we turn it over to this land acquisition fund, we never get another say.
There's a fund, just like all of the funds, no one department has access or availability to move any of those funds. So it would go through the same process as everything else. The selectmen would be heavily involved, and then it would come to a town meeting and
Okay.
to be involved. All of the funds are spent in that manner.
Great. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, Bill?
Well, one of those machinations that Cheryl referred to, you're not approving the expenditure of those funds, you're approving them to be allotted to a particular fund. Cheryl mentioned Crook's Orchard situation. I believe the Paradise property, when we acquired that property with the farming development rights, and that ultimately it had to be approved by a town meeting.
Nothing happens fast in government.
No.
This is true. Okay.
So
So
what
any more-
happens once we own these properties?
Linda?
What's that?
I am back.
Hey, we can hear you.
I fiddled around with settings. So what properties are we referring to?
Crooks and the Norton property that we use land acquisition funds to purchase.
Oh,
Or
the
purchase the building rights.
properties, they're still taxable, but it has to do with development. I think more the development rights more than anything else, that you can't put up housing projects or whatever. So you paid for the right to keep it as what it is.
It locks in a designated use, in these two cases, farming.
And the ones that we involve Joshua's trust with?
Joshua's trusts are usually tax exempt.
Right, and I think it was the Norton property. They just made a donation of $15,000 toward the purchase of the development rights. They do have funds for that at Joshua.
Yeah, I've run into all kinds of properties while we were looking to buy our farm. And a lot of them had been done into conservation, or the development rights were sold, or they were part of Joshua's trust. And every single one of them was a disaster. It turns into something that's no longer managed, and the property goes wild, or it's deed restricted into oblivion, and you can't do anything with it. And I had one property that I looked at. It had 20-acre stand of woods on it. And if a tree fell down, you weren't allowed to cut it up, and you couldn't even walk your dog in the woods because it wasn't natural. This stuff just drives me crazy. because this is who I compete with when I tried to buy my property, was properties that were sold into things that were then too restricted to actually do even the intended purpose with.
How many properties do we have in town that are in this type of situation? A lot? Is it a lot of land?
Well,
Does anybody know?
we have a lot of tax exempt properties. We have several churches,
Boy Scout camp.
Yeah, but those,
Salvation
camps.
Army.
Yeah,
those
Hole in
didn't involve town purchase like this.
Right.
I mean, off the top of my head, Crook's Orchard, or what was Crook's Orchards, the Knowlton, the farm property, there's two different pieces up there. Joshua Trust has a large piece of that as well, the other Knowlton property. But Joshua Trust is a separate thing. To my knowledge, and Bill, you can correct me, or Cheryl, we've never contributed the other way. As far as when Joshua wants to purchase something.
Oh, no.
Or acquire something.
Never.
No.
I mean, we have an abundance of non-taxable Yale forest.
Right.
You know,
Right.
state property.
But these are properties, like Linda said, that remain taxable at some level. It's just generally this fund in the past, and I can't speak going forward, but in the past, it's been used to purchase the development rights. So like Crooks, Knowlton's, the Parody Farm, those are
Is
the
there-
three that I
Is
can
there any
think of.
land on Zychek that's protected? I thought one of the Zycheks.
Nope, it's not
No.
protected.
Okay.
No.
It's worth noting that a town next to us that has low tax rates uses open space as a method of keeping taxes low by buying the development rights, buying land.
How does that, that doesn't even compute in my head, Garth, so explain that to me, and what town are we talking about?
Eastford, somebody I know is into Eastford politics, and that's what they claim. That so when they buy property, that means that a house isn't going to go up, and when a house doesn't go up, there's no kids going into school.
That is true to a degree. It doesn't, but depending on how the open space acquisition or the development rights are written, but that gets kind of into what John talked about. Now you not only, yes, it's great that it's open space or you can't build on it, but now there's a competition for land purchase or lack thereof. Because and then we kind of reverse ourselves, and we'll have nobody paying taxes on, and Linda will be coming back to the Board of Finance. It's a kind of a catch-22, and I'm stuck in the middle, which is why I said I won't make the motion. I get it. I'm on all three sides. I own land. I'm on the Ag Commission, and I'm on the Board of Finance, so I'm actually going to stay out of it. But it's a complicated mess, in all honesty. And I understand John's concern, because I went through it when I was looking for property and throughout the state and other places.
Can I ask another question?
Christina?
Where does the open space land acquisition fund, because they've done these deals in the past, like we've said, Crook Orchards as being one, so they obviously had money in that fund for that. So where did that money come from in the past?
Some of it was from logging. Was it Langhammer? Bill, do you remember that?
I believe it was.
And
I believe there were various small sources of revenues when it was determined to try to protect farmland in particular, or whatever, and development rights.
yeah, I don't
There was a
remember.
pool. There was a pool of money put together collectively. Judy, can I make a suggestion? Why don't you consider tabling this and asking somebody from the Conservation Commission to come to your next meeting and explain their rationale?
I think that's a good idea, because right now I'm kind of like,
The
I'm
world
looking
will
at
not
it
end
as-
if you don't move on this tonight.
Yeah, I'm neither way at the moment. So
So
we'll
since I'm
table it.
not familiar with the vernacular of this town yet, is the orchard still an orchard and is the farm still a farm?
Yes.
Yes and yes, John.
Okay, good.
And
Uh,
maybe to clarify, just, I know John understands it, but it's kind of a mislabel when we label it the Open Space Acquisition Fund in this case, because the funds were used to purchase the development rights. It doesn't make it public property. Now, that doesn't mean that, I know the town in the past has either, I'm guessing we haven't purchased any property. We probably acquired it through a tax sale or lack thereof. Because the town does own some property throughout town for different reasons. But in this case, this money is generally used to assist in the purchasing of development rights. And as Cheryl pointed out, that's a very long process. It's not just the town that's involved. It's the state, it's Department of Ag, it's the town, it's could be another conservation group. I know the Parody's farm that involved another, I don't even remember which one. I don't know who was involved with Crooks, so. But I will, if you want, I will move to table it till the next meeting and we can ask the Conservation Commission to come and
Yeah.
explain their rationale.
I did
I would
recall
say
where
that.
some of the funding comes from when there are subdevelopments, when land is subdivided. A portion of either portion of the land or money has to be given to the town. So that's where some of that came in.
Right, you're right, I remember that, it's in the zoning regulations for the
Yes.
subdivisions.
for what specific purpose? What, is that money earmarked for something?
It's earmarked to go into the acquisition fund. So that's how
Oh, I
the
don't
fund
like that.
initially was built up, John.
I don't like that.
Well, that's so that what it does is it encourages developers to either earmark some of the property for open space, which, as you can imagine, can be kind of not good, but or contribute to the fund so that it has a way to build up some equity. That's a zoning thing. That's not a Board of Finance thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of spending taxpayer. We're not short on green space in this town, and spending taxpayer money because I don't want to see something change on a property I don't own is just not the way it works for me. I'm sorry.
Well, why don't we table it and at least have them come in and speak to it, give them an opportunity to defend their stance and give us more information on, what it's really about. And then we'll revisit it for, the next meeting.
It's fine with me. I just, you tie the hands of every future property owner when you sell a development rights.
Yeah, it sounds like it's self-defeating for growth. But I don't know enough about it to even move on it. I'm personally myself.
Just as an FYI, I shared an article from The Current in the chat, which explains the Crook Orchards deal, which might be useful to read before the next presentation on this.
I'm calling in on a phone. Is there a way I can access that?
John.
I can email it to you, John. Do you need a computer,
That'd be
John?
great.
Because I've got some extras around my house. I could probably give you a computer if you need one.
What I need is less kids. My house is full of computers. I don't want to be in my house with the kids.
There's some tips.
And dogs.
There's some tips on how not to have kids I could share too, but we won't go into that.
It's been taken care of.
This is where the open space comes in, John.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad you have all that open space all of a sudden?
I send them to every corner of the farm,
Yeah.
but they still come back at the wrong time.
Oh, brother. Okay.
Oh, John. Okay, let's wrap it up here. So we'll move it to the next meeting and we'll invite them to come in and speak and give us a spiel on what this is all about. So item number 8 is, was going to be the HR presentation by the selectmen for an executive session. I believe that is not going to be happening. Right, Bill?
Yeah, I appreciate you folks. I mentioned it at your last meeting that I thought we may have a need for this, but there is no need for that at this time. We'll leave it open and I'll keep you informed if there's a need for that at your next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the agendas for the next meeting, one is the open space. Jesse's annual report update. Perhaps we can do more on the summary of the expenditures. See where we're at. Anybody else have any items that they'd like to add? Bill, could Kara come in and talk about the 2020 equalized net grand list when she gets information?
I'll be glad to ask her.
Yeah, maybe we'll put that on there too. Anybody else have anything? Okay. Remarks for the good of the board. We have two lovely ladies here tonight, Cheryl and Linda. We don't say thank you enough. You guys are wonderful. You do a great job. We appreciate you. Cheryl, we're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Sorry to hear about your retirement. And Linda, well, you know I love you too. But anyway, we appreciate all your support for the board. And thank you guys for your work, the whole board sticking there. And Angie, it's your favorite time.
So move. Move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
John, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Night,
Have a
folks.
good night, folks.
Good night.